Hello, computer information systems. Welcome back. I am doing the last assignment this week, here Friday on the 24th. So, a couple of things really quick. With the last couple of assignments, we looked at payroll, and from here we had a mixture of kind of simple and more advanced formulas. We also looked at the absolute, which was these dollar symbols that we find in a formula. A quick review. The reason why we needed those absolutes is because when we used our fill handle to copy that formula down to the lower rows, we want the blue portion of our formula to change as we drag down. But we don't want that red portion of our formula to change as we drag down. So that's why we add those dollar signs. Those dollar signs have nothing to do with money in this context. When it's in a formula, they act more like an anchor, is what I think of them as, which means don't move from here, H10. Okay? So those are called absolutes. We also talked in the car loan section about some more advanced functions. We used as an example the PMT function. This is an advanced function because it takes multiple arguments. That is the information that the function needs in order to work. This takes 1, 2, 3 different functions to work, and advanced functions often take some specialized knowledge to understand how to make them work. All right. And here we looked at pricing out a couple of different car loans was our example. I wanted to show you real quickly a couple of things that I found while I was creating, I'll save that for another time to stay on task here. There are a couple of like nifty little new things that I found in the Office 365 version, but I will show you that at another time. Okay, in the meantime, what we are going to do is we're going to go to this Excel Activity 11 Start. Now this is a file that I've prepared for you that I'm going to share with you so that you don't have to do all the typing to get started. When you first open this file, we're going to make sure that we save it as, and we're going to give it a new name. You will want to call it, instead of Excel Activity 11 Start, you'll want to call it probably working dot your initials. Okay? I am going to change it to working dot example. Okay? All right, so Excel Activity 11.working.example. And let's look at what we have here. All right, so I have some test scores. I have some student names or some testers. They might be workers or applicants to a job. And we're going to try to fill this in. Now, what we're looking at today is we're going to look at some very basic functions. And then we're also going to look at a very specific advanced function, which is called the if function, which is an example of a logical function. Okay, so there's a couple of key terms there. I'm just typing this out. So we've got, simple functions. And let's give that a definition, which is easy to use. And typically only uses one argument. And then we have complex or advanced functions, which are take specialized knowledge. Typically uses more than one argument. And then the other term that I used threw at you was a logical function. A type of function that uses a logical test. And those are to return a true or false response. Okay, so the things that we use in logical functions are things like, you know, you might have gotten this in your algebra class. A equals B. A is greater than B. A is less than B. A is not equal to B. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that we can do these kind of logical expressions when we're using a logical function. Okay, and so the if function is an example of a logical function. You do not need to type this out. If you did, it's not a bad thing. But I just wanted to kind of list this out for you so that you can kind of keep track of some of these vocabulary terms that I'm working with. All right, so let's get back here. I'm cutting out on time here, so let's get back to the task at hand. The first thing that I want to do is I want to review my flash fill. This is just because it's something that happens so frequently with me in my line of work, and I know in other people's line of work as well. I have a list of names, and maybe I want to be able to alphabetize them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is in B2, I'm going to type the first last name. So this is Shepherd. Oh, even before I do that, I set something up wrong here. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is I want to go and I want to get rid of any duplicates. Okay, and we have in Excel a tool that will help us with that. So I'm going to go to the Data tab, and here I'm going to remove duplicates. So you can see, if you look closely, we have Bevan Farmer is in 2 spots, and I think we have Zachary Nichols is in 2 spots, and I don't want 2 entries for those testers. Okay, so I don't know if I even need those highlighted. Let me just click in A2, and I'm going to do remove duplicates. And here it's going to say, where do you want to remove duplicates from? All right, so it's going to ask if my data has headers. Right now I do not have headers in A1 or B1, so going to make sure that that's still off. I want to remove the duplicates in column A. So here we go. I click OK, and see I removed 2 duplicate values. They were removed, and I have 10 unique values that remain. So I have a little status report there. Let's get rid of these numbers that I don't need anymore. That's from D12 down to F13. Okay, now I'm going to go and use my flash fill. So I'm going to do my last name first, Shepherd, and then my first name, Letitia. And clicking in B2, I'm going to now, in the Data tab, going to click on Flash Fill. And look, it's automatically going to detect my last names and put those in there. I'm going to click on Letitia and Flash Fill again. And there, I've got my first names. So now I've broken up my column A information into 2 columns using Flash Fill. I no longer need this information, so I am going to right-click on the A and delete that column. At this point, I'm going to just expand my column width just a little bit to make it a little more comfortable there, easy to read. All right, And maybe what I want to do at this point is I want to put in some labels, last name and first name. And let's go ahead and sort. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my area from A1 down to H11. I'm going to click on, let's see if I do sort ascending. Okay, it's going to detect that my top row are headers, so it did not include that in the sort, but it did sort everything down below. Okay, so Excel is clever like that. But notice that I was questioning because it's important, especially while you're new with Excel, that you separate like what you're intending the program to do and what it's actually doing. And you have to always be checking and watching Excel. It is a clever tool. It can often interpret what you want, but it's not always correct. So I wanted to make sure that it did not accidentally sort my column headings into the rest of my text. If that does happen, I would go ahead and I would undo and I would try it again a different way. Okay. All right. So moving on, we are going to now add some simple some simple functions to our spreadsheet here. We're going to try to determine a test average. Let me expand this column. And in here, we are going to find an average test score. All right. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to actually use the auto sum button. If I click on, so I'm now in F2, I'm going to click on this little down arrow next to the auto sum button. Notice that we're in the home tab. All right. And here I have average. Average is just such a commonly used function that they place it up here underneath the auto sum function so that we can access it very easily. I'm going to click on average, and what I'm going to get is a scrolling marquee that says, is this what you want me to average? And Excel is going to take a guess. In this case, it's correct. I want to average these three scores together. So I accept that function by pressing enter. Okay, and so there's my student's average. I'm going to use my fill handle to drag down, and I'm going to get my averages. Now, you'll see that sometimes when I average three numbers, I can get a decimal point. I don't want those decimals to get crazy. They look really ugly there next to the whole numbers. So let's make everything uniform, and I'm going to give it exactly 1 decimal point. So let's go and click on, let's see, after I pressed increase decimal once, it actually just put it to a single decimal point, and that works for me. Okay? All right, so there is my test average. Now I want to determine whether or not my students passed or failed. Actually, before we do that, let's do some easy stuff. We're going to do our high score and our low score. All right. To the right of high score, we're now in C13. I'm going to go back to my auto sum. I'm going to use the max function. All right. Now, the max function is asking, do you want me to add up this area? This blank cell probably isn't going to make a difference in this example, but it's still always good to make sure that you're only highlighting exactly what you want in case something changes with the spreadsheet later. So the way I can do that is simply click and drag down the area I actually want, and then I press enter. I'm going to look at the low score. So here, auto sum, min, and look, it's guessing completely wrong here. So now I definitely need to click and drag down, enter. I've got my low score, and I'm going to highlight both of those new functions and use my fill handle to drag across. Okay. All right, I'm out of time. We're going to do our if function with part 2.